She had lived alone, happily and capably, for over 15 years. Then, within the span of a single spring, her daughter noticed something changing. Expired medications still being taken, dinner forgotten halfway through cooking, a familiar walk to the pharmacy, suddenly requiring a phone call for directions. None of these moments looked dramatic on their own. Together, they told a very different story. One about independence, quietly slipping away, piece by piece, long before anyone used the word dementia out loud. Independence is one of the things families fight hardest to protect, and one of the last things anyone wants to admit is at risk. That is exactly why the early warning signs affecting it are so often minimized, explained away, or simply not recognized, until a real crisis forces the issue. A missed pill, a skipped meal, a moment of confusion on a familiar street, each one, taken alone, feels forgivable, even ordinary. It is only when you step back and see them together that the real pattern comes into focus. Today we are going to cover the 5 most critical early warning signs that can affect a person's independence, the quiet shifts that often show up long before a family is ready to have the harder conversation. Welcome back. Independence is deeply tied to identity, the ability to manage your own home, your own health, your own daily life, without needing to ask for help. Which is exactly why losing pieces of it, even small pieces, can feel so threatening that both the person experiencing it and their family sometimes work together, without meaning to avoid noticing. Here is what makes this especially difficult. A person can maintain enough surface level competence to reassure everyone that things are fine, while specific, important tasks are quietly becoming harder underneath. A phone call can sound completely normal. A quick visit can look completely ordinary. It is only in the accumulated details of daily independent living, medications, meals, navigation, safety, that the fuller picture starts to emerge. Many families describe a specific moment when several small observations suddenly connected into a single, undeniable pattern, often during a longer visit, or after a specific frightening incident forced closer attention. Let's go through the 5 signs. Stay through to sign number 4, because it is the one that carries the most immediate physical risk, and the one families are often most reluctant to address directly. The first sign shows up in one of the most safety-critical parts of daily independent living: taking medication correctly and consistently. This might look like doses missed entirely, doses taken twice by mistake, or medications continuing to be taken well past their expiration date without anyone noticing. For someone managing multiple prescriptions, this task requires tracking timing, dosage, and sequence correctly, day after day, a genuinely complex cognitive task that is easy to underestimate until it starts to break down. Families often discover this only when reviewing a pill organizer and finding it does not match what should have been taken that week, or when a pharmacy calls about an unusually early refill request. By the time this becomes visible, the pattern may have been building quietly for months. Some families only learn the full extent after a hospital visit, when a doctor asks a simple question about current medications and receives an answer that does not match what was actually prescribed. The second sign involves personal care routines that once required no conscious thought at all. This can look like wearing the same clothes for several days in a row, a noticeable change in grooming habits, or genuine difficulty remembering the full sequence involved in a shower or bath. This is not about laziness, or simply caring less about appearance. Hygiene routines involve a surprising number of sequential steps, and difficulty completing that sequence is often an early, quiet sign of executive function changes, rather than a change in personal values. This particular sign is one of the most emotionally sensitive to raise, because it touches something deeply personal and dignity-related. Families often notice it long before they feel able to say anything about it directly, sometimes going months, while quietly hoping it resolves on its own, or handling it indirectly by leaving out fresh clothes or gently suggesting a shower, rather than naming the concern outright. The third sign shows up in the kitchen, a space that once represented total independence and competence. This might look like meals left half-prepared, the same simple dish made repeatedly, because anything more complex now feels overwhelming, or genuinely concerning safety lapses, like a burner left on after cooking is finished. Meal preparation requires planning, sequencing, and safety awareness simultaneously, which makes it one of the more complex tasks of daily living, and one of the first to reveal quiet decline. Families sometimes notice weight loss before they notice the cause, only realizing later that meals had gradually become smaller, simpler, or skipped altogether, not due to appetite loss, but because preparing anything more involved had become genuinely difficult. A refrigerator full of spoiled, untouched groceries can sometimes tell this story more clearly than any conversation, revealing good intentions that never quite made it to the stove. And here is sign number 4, the one that carries the most immediate physical risk, and the one families are often most reluctant to bring up directly. The 4th sign is disorientation in places that were once completely familiar. A neighborhood walked for decades, a regular grocery store, even a route within one's own home. This might look like needing directions to a place visited weekly for years, becoming confused about which turn to take on a walk taken 1,000 times before, or a moment of genuine panic upon not immediately recognizing surroundings that should be effortlessly familiar. This sign often frightens families more than any other on this list, because it represents a direct safety risk, and because it can happen suddenly and without warning, even in someone who otherwise seems to be managing well. This is precisely the sign that most urgently pushes families toward difficult conversations about driving, about living alone, and about safety more broadly. Conversations that are almost always avoided until an incident forces the issue, rather than approached proactively, while there is still time to plan calmly. A single frightening moment, like a loved one found blocks from home, unable to explain how they got there, often becomes the turning point that finally moves a family from quiet worry to real action. The 5th and final sign involves technology and appliances that were once used with complete ease. This might look like difficulty operating a phone that has been used for years, confusion about how to work a familiar television remote, or an inability to troubleshoot a small technical problem that would once have been solved without a second thought. As homes increasingly rely on devices for safety, communication, and daily function, difficulty with technology is not simply a generational gap. It can represent a genuine and meaningful barrier to continued safe independence. This sign is sometimes the easiest for families to dismiss, since technology struggles are common at every age, but a specific, worsening pattern with previously familiar and simple devices deserves the same attention as the other signs on this list. Not automatic dismissal, as simply being not tech-savvy. A person who once texted grandchildren daily, now unable to unlock their own phone, represents a meaningfully different pattern than someone who was never particularly comfortable with technology to begin with. Together, these 5 signs reveal something families often resist seeing until it becomes unavoidable. Independence rarely disappears all at once. It erodes quietly, one small task at a time, until the accumulated pattern finally demands attention. Recognizing it early is not about rushing to take independence away. It is about building the right support around it before a crisis makes that decision for you. Let me speak directly to you for a moment. If you have been noticing small pieces of independence slipping for someone you love, a missed medication, a forgotten meal, a moment of getting lost, a struggle with something as simple as a phone, please know that noticing this pattern is not overreacting. It is often the first real step toward getting the right support in place before a genuine crisis forces the issue. Here is your action for today. Rather than addressing every concern at once, choose the single area that feels most urgent: medications, safety, or navigation, and start there, with one small, specific conversation, rather than an overwhelming list of everything that has changed. Small, focused support, introduced early and with dignity, is almost always easier for everyone to accept than a sweeping change forced by crisis later on. If this video helped you recognize a pattern you had not fully connected before, please hit the like button. It helps this reach families before independence is lost unexpectedly, rather than supported proactively. Subscribe so you never miss a video in this series. We cover everything from early warning signs to caregiving strategies to the real science behind Alzheimer's disease. Share this video with someone who has been quietly worrying about an aging parent living alone. This knowledge could help them know what to watch for and when to act. Drop a comment below. Which of these 5 signs have you noticed in someone you love? I read every comment, and your experience may help another family recognize this pattern in time to help. Thank you for being here. You are doing something powerful simply by staying informed. I will see you in the next one.